some of it starts with our beliefs about money and that idea that more will make us happier. And it is such a compelling idea. But we know from many, many research studies that unless you're below a pretty low level of like where your basic needs aren't being met, more money is not going to bring more contentment.
Money and mental states, they are so closely intertwined, and yet we like to keep it separate, or at least keep the money part hidden away until we really have to deal with it. At least that's kind of what I do. But it's so deeply embedded in our culture. But let's talk about how it affects who we hang out with, class and society, how we might feel about our spouse or ourselves based on our earnings. Over the years, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with friends about the imbalance of earnings in a relationship or not being able to do things that they wish they could. I've heard guys I've worked with in the past, and I hate this, but I've heard guys I've worked with in the past making kind of underhanded, disparaging comments about their wife sitting around all day while he has to go to work and make the money. Not all guys, but I've heard it enough. I've heard from women who stay at home but are afraid to go back in the workforce because they don't feel like they have the same earning power or skill sets as some of their peers. You know, it's not like the workplace is really accommodating working moms in the same way that they do for men. In this part of money, all of these kind of underlying bubbling things that we don't really talk about is what I don't hear people talking about enough, and that's why we're talking about it here. So I've been super excited to bring on Dr. Seth Gillihan. Seth Gillihan is a clinical psychologist. He's a best-selling author, podcast host, and creator of the Think, Act, Be online school. He specializes, this is so cool, he specializes in mindfulness-centered cognitive behavioral therapy. And I want to say, because usually when I hear cognitive behavioral therapy, it sounds very scientific, and then blending or fusing it with mindfulness, I don't hear quite often. And Seth shares simple research-based practices for managing stress and anxiety. We talk about spouse envy, blending cognitive behavioral therapy with mindfulness practice, and how money impacts relationships, your relationship, my relationship, our relationships with each other, and the culture at large. This is such a juicy episode, and I couldn't wait to bring it to you. Quick note that these episodes are getting more and more real, like right to the very heart of the matter. No dancing around, we are solving problems. And I want you to go to allisonhair.com and drop me your email, and you'll get these new episodes delivered right to your inbox with a personal story I don't really share anywhere else. And you can do that at allisonhair.com and leave me your email. Here's my chat with Dr. Seth Gillihan. So we're talking all about money, but not like money, how to invest better, but like how money impacts who we hang out with, the decisions that we make, the way that we feel about ourselves, the way we move around the world. And so you have been in private practice for quite some time. And I'm wondering how much of people's deep-seated issues around self-worth, communication, anxiety, how much do you think could be stemmed from the root of money?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. I think there's definitely a close connection between kind of our fears, our anxieties, the way we see ourselves, and our relationship with money. I think that the relationship runs in both directions. There's, certainly the way that we feel about ourselves impacts our relationship with money, but and the reverse can also be true. But I think our attitudes and our feelings around our finances, in one way or another, can reveal a lot about us. I think we can learn from ourselves, learn about ourselves from kind of observing how we relate to money, and how money might come up in our other relationships too, which we may talk about as well, whether with a partner or friends or parents or others.
Yeah, I had just started with my own therapist, and I gingerly brought up, you know what, I think I've got issues with money. We need to kind of unpack this, and it's almost like, you know, I'm afraid to open the beast a little bit. And one thing in an article that you wrote, do you mind if I read you a passage that just kind of stopped me dead in my tracks? You've said, our early experiences with money can also affect what we believe we're capable of. For example, if we dreamed of getting a nice toy but couldn't afford it, we might come to believe that the things we really want in life will always be out of reach.
Right, yeah, those formative experiences. Damn. I know. Who knew? Even before, you know, we were aware that we were developing kind of a psychology of ourselves and of our own worth. Yeah, these things can have an effect on us. I mean, this is something that I learned really clearly from Ken Honda. You know, he's also called the Zen Millionaire.
Happy Money, right?
Happy Money. Yes, yeah, great book, really insightful. And yeah, I think those types of early learning experiences can really shape us for longer than we realize, and can end up, there can be a kind of positive feedback loop where we believe certain things about ourselves, which then affects our actions in a way that confirm our beliefs, which then continue to affect what we feel and what we do. And we can, if we're not aware of it, if we're not consciously self-aware, we can stay stuck in those kind of self-perpetuating cycles.
But that's what I'm wondering. Do you feel like our ability to earn money, the way that maybe there's stories that we're kind of telling ourselves are being formed in our formative years. Do you feel like it limits what we can earn? Do we have to consciously unlearn it?
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of us, I think, do. I mean, yeah, it's interesting because in my mind, it's not the amount of money that we're able to make is not necessarily a good judge of our psychological health around money. So there are those who are fantastic at making money. They make it hand over fist, and yet have a very unhealthy relationship with money. You know, a person could manage a hedge fund and, you know, bring in multiple millions a year, but that doesn't mean that they have a healthy relationship with money. It just means that they're good at multiplying their income. And I think, I mean, if we step back even a little further, maybe this is slightly outside the realm of psychology, but I think all of us grow up in a society where money is really revered, and our self-worth is attached to money. The idea of what we're capable of is tied to how much we're able to earn because of, you know, just the capitalist water that we all swim in. And so I think it takes a lot to see through that. There's a kind of cultural core belief that we have around the value of an income, and that in some way it's hard to value ourselves or the work of others if it's not attached to some dollar value. So that's kind of the bigger picture. But yeah, I think when we can in unconscious ways find ourselves limited in how much we earn because of certain underlying beliefs. Like maybe we have a belief that the work I do is invaluable, or that I don't value myself, and so how could I possibly expect someone to pay for the effort that I'm expending? Or this idea of a kind of fixed, like a fixed pie, where if I have more, that means less for someone else, so there can be guilt attached to money, versus, you know, more of, as I'm sure you're familiar with, an abundance mindset where, you know, the idea being like a rising tide raises all ships. Right.
When I was younger, my mother beat it into my head when I was a teenage girl, and she would say, Allison, never rely on a man to make money. You always make your own money. And my mother was a stay-at-home mom, and I don't know that she regretted it, but she found herself in some in some positions where she didn't want her daughters to be in that same boat. And so that story of productivity, of self-worth, I work professionally in sales and have been for 20 years. And that really is like an unwinding, or I'm trying to unwind that self-worth kind of tied to the earnings thing. And I know that you specialize very heavily not only in mindfulness, but also in cognitive behavioral therapy, which I think is an interesting mix too, which I do want to dig into. But can you explain what cognitive behavioral therapy is and how we can start to maybe apply some of these principles to unlearning?
Sure. Well, the cognitive part is just that it's the awareness that we're telling ourselves stories all the time, or we might say our mind is telling us a story all the time. And if we don't recognize those stories, then we're going to live under the assumption that they're true. So an example would be, let's say the thought comes to me, I'm never going to get ahead financially. I mean, that's a story, right? It's a prediction about the future. It could be true. It might not be true. But I might receive that as just fact, like the sky is blue today. It actually is. It's a gorgeous day here. So that's true. But the idea that I won't get ahead financially is an idea that may or may not come true. And so with the cognitive part of CBT, we practice very deliberately recognizing those stories. That's the first part, because if we don't recognize them, then we have no chance of changing them, of adopting a different story. And then once we're aware of them, then we can ask ourselves, like, is that the only alternative? Or is it possible that things could go a different way? Like, maybe I will do better financially. Maybe I am able to make more money than I think. And then, at that deeper level that we were talking about, maybe also asking, why am I basing my self-worth on the money that I make? Why is my own value attached to the value of my savings account? But I should mention, Allison, again, this broader context. I tend to focus on the individual, and I think it's only more recently that I've been aware of these more kind of society-wide aspects. But when you talk about what's someone's net worth, right? We know exactly what that means. That means what's the dollar value of their assets versus liabilities, and that's their net worth. Or we say someone had a successful life, had a successful career, has a successful business. Mostly what we assume that means is how much money is coming in. How much does this person have in the bank? So it's understandable that we end up falling for these stories about our worth being attached to money, because that's how it is in our society. I mean, same with your mom as someone who, it sounds like, wasn't working outside the home after she had kids, at least. I mean, our society places a very clear dollar value on that type of work versus, I don't just mean versus working outside of the home for a paycheck. Not just in the paycheck, but with retirement. Like, if you're not paying into Social Security through your, with withholdings from your job, then a lot of people, more often women, are kind of out of luck when it comes to retirement, especially if their spouses, if they got divorced or their spouses didn't, provide for their retirement. Again, I know you didn't ask me on here as a cultural critic, but... No,
I think it is. I mean, this is called Culture Changers. This is all about culture. And it reminds me, I speak to so many women who are stay-at-home moms, and they dread the question when they meet somebody, oh, do you work outside the home? Like, there is an inherent value, of like, oh, I have to explain this, but don't they realize how hard I work just to keep these humans alive?
I know.
It's a commentary on society of self-worth, and it's dreadful that they have to dread this conversation, like dread that question.
Isn't it? I hate that. I mean, it's so often the answer too, sadly, is, no, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. Right?
Just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just a mom.
Right. I'm just raising the next generation.
Why is it so devalued? Right. Exactly.
I mean, I think, again, it comes back to that awareness that there's not this value within society. And so we want to kind of, it's sort of like when you want to let someone else know before they tell you, like when you have an issue, like a problem, like a cold sore. Like you want to say to someone like, oh yeah, I've got a cold sore, before they point it out or before they notice it on their own. There's somehow you control the story, or at least you know that they know that you know. So maybe that's part of it, wanting to preempt that feeling of the other person's judgment. Like, no, it's okay. I'm already judging myself. I'm already kind of downgrading myself. But I think it's sad, and it's, irritating too. I think there is just so much judgment around women's work in both directions, whether you work outside the home or you don't. So, as you may have guessed, I've had many conversations with my wife about this, and she's helped me to see these things more clearly. But it is such an unfortunate issue. I was working once with a stay-at-home mom who said that one of her kids had said something about she does nothing all day. This is someone with like 5 kids, running them around everywhere, working before anyone else in the morning and later than anyone else in the family at night. And then, this kid was so, he's a teenager, so he didn't have the perspective to know, but yeah, how sad to have your life devalued in that way.
But I think also there are a couple of things that come to mind. So, I work in technology sales, and it's, I'm generally one of very few women. And so I'll hear men talk about their wives, not all, but I'll hear comments of, she does nothing all day, or if she would bring some more money in, we could do more. And one thing I was interested to talk about, because I know you work in, you've spoken about money as it relates to couples. And I was at a big party that was a big surprise party that was thrown recently. And it was a very lavish party, people that are very affluent. And I cannot tell you how many of the guests said, I wish my husband did this for me. I wish we could make more money. I wish we could, they must have, it was just this weird commentary of like either downgrading their spouse or making commentary. I don't know if it's spouse envy or what it was, but it was like this commentary where it was like this us versus them, or, like I wish I could be at this other level. And it was sad to me. And so I wonder it shouldn't be that way. And I wonder, you being in the position that you're in, where you speak to people one-on-one, and you have a podcast and you have books. Your commentary out in the world is changing society, whether it's one person at a time or through commentary through some of your articles. How do you even begin to unwind a tangle of a money mindset using cognitive behavioral therapy or mindfulness? It is so complicated.
Yeah. Well, some of it starts with our beliefs about money and that idea that more will make us happier. And it is such a compelling idea. But we know from many, many research studies that unless you're below a pretty low level of like where your basic needs aren't being met, more money is not going to bring more contentment. And in fact,
will more money bring freedom? Is freedom happiness?
2 big questions. So more money can bring more freedom and more flexibility, and that may bring more happiness. But what we know is, on average, beyond some amount, it used to be $50,000. Last I heard, it's maybe $75,000 US dollars a year. That net happiness doesn't go up, mostly because we habituate so quickly. We take things for granted. Whatever the situation is, we get used to it. That doesn't mean that we're not glad to have the freedom and the opportunities that we have, but it's usually not this sort of unadulterated pleasure, or enjoyment or benefit. That there are downsides. Like there are more things to worry about when you have more money. There's more to lose. There's really, So here's the thing, Allison. I mean, I think what's helped me most in my understanding of money is working with people who've had a lot of it, and because I am just as susceptible, to some of the things you were describing, like when I see someone, who's like a couple who's able to do something, really, really nice, and I wish I wish I had that kind of money, that I could that I could plan that kind of trip, for my wife or for our family.
Sure.
And that, that'd be nice on the one hand, but then, when I talk to people who are in a position to do that, it's not like their lives are ideal. It's not like, it's not the Facebookized version of, everything looks beautiful and glamorous. I mean, it's messy in some way, not necessarily because of the money, but the money doesn't take away the existing problems. Like if someone's in a relationship that's not great, then having more money isn't going to improve that. It could even make it worse. Maybe it means more time apart, less closeness and intimacy, possibility for other people entering the picture in a way that's not good for the couple, in terms of infidelity or that kind of thing. Or it's just, I mean, there's no way really to save enough money or to have enough money that suddenly things are okay. That the basic types of things that we worry about, our health, our relationships, those kinds of things they're immune to, no matter, it doesn't matter how much money we have. You can have, you can have the best relationship experts, you can have the best doctors, and still we all live with this kind of uncertainty, and the more we stockpile, in a way, it can just feed this insatiable hunger for security, a type of security that isn't found in our possessions. And that's I can pause. I'm on a bit of a ramble, but
I love it. I love it because I wonder how do you redirect your attention? Can you consciously redirect your attention in a way that's going to be healthier than continuously focused on status, money, self-worth, productivity, all of those things kind of tied into it?
Yeah, I think all those things I would consider attachments. Attachment in the kind of Eastern philosophy type of approach, where we cling to things. We chase things and we cling to these attachments, believing that they're where our happiness lies. And then the happiness that we hope for doesn't materialize. And so usually we double down. We say, okay, well, that wasn't enough, but I just need more. I just need to, I need a better car, bigger house, a bigger income. And the way to step out of that is to move from these false attachments to true connection. And those sound similar in a way, attachment and connection. But I think of attachment as a kind of an attempt to merge myself with something, like to fuse myself to a person or a possession, but in a way that can never be consummated. Like we can't actually get there. We remain frustrated. But connection is real. It's a kind of more of an overlapping, but without a merging. And that way of relating is inherently satisfying. So I can give you an example. We can go on the most lavish vacation. Go to all the nicest spots in Europe or Asia, wherever, or the U.S. And not really experience it in a real way. Feel the whole time that we're constantly chasing something that continues to elude us. Or we can have that same experience, or even the experience that you and I, Allison, are having right now, in a real, grounded, connected type of way. And it's the best thing ever, because we're just doing what we're doing. We're seeing what we're seeing, feeling what we're feeling. We're hearing sounds, and we're actually having that experience. So, and that's
Isn't
where
that being present, though?
that is being
that
present.
Being present?
That's mindfulness.
Is that it?
Yes.
Is that all his connection?
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah. Just being present to our experience.
That's a really powerful distinction of attachment versus connection. I never heard that before.
Yeah, that occurred to me recently. It's so funny that they sound so similar, and yet I think because attachment to me is a misguided attempt at connection, but it's a connection that is never realized.
One thing I heard in your podcast when you did interview Ken Honda, and this again was really beautiful and kind of dovetails off of what you're saying, is that if you're going to invest in anything, invest in relationships, because relationships are far more satisfying. It trumps any money, than anything could if you've got strong relationships. I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah, I loved that too. I thought that was so important and so well said when he described it. I think it overlaps a lot for me with the value of experiences versus possessions. And I think that's, again, maybe the kind of similar distinction to attachment and connection, that these things that we want to possess never satisfy really in the way that an experience does. Something that we can actually, because like if I, let's say, I don't know if people are watching video of this or just the audio, but I'm holding up this stone. It's not valuable, but if this were a diamond, I might have had, real covetousness for this. I think if I could just own that, if I could just have that diamond, I'd be satisfied. But when it comes down to it, what are you going to do with the stone, right? You can look at it, you can hold it, but it's not going to comfort you when you're lonely. It's not going to feed you when you're hungry. It's not going to satisfy your thirst. Versus an experience, you'd trade everything you have for a glass of cold water if you were dying of thirst and you had this stone. So
I'm so interested to learn about you. So you have a very academic background, University of Pennsylvania, and PhD in cognitive behavioral therapist, yet you focus a lot on merging that with mindfulness. And so from an ignorant person's perspective, me being the ignorant person, one seems a little more woo than the other. How do you experience pushback on that? And what is your experience on merging the two? Why are they important together?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. And I appreciate you framing it that way, because I think a lot of people have that experience and that impression that mindfulness is kind of, it's sort of out there, it's kind of woo-woo, and cognitive behavioral therapy, at least by reputation, is sort of, it's more scientific, it's more cut and dried, more rational. And I came to CBT first. I had a science background in college. I was a biology major, and I think that's why it appealed to me. But really, what I've found in my practice, as I later came to mindfulness, both as a clinician and practicing it myself, is that the two are really indispensable for each other. That I think of them now as head, hands, and heart. Head being cognitive, hands being behavioral, and heart being mindfulness. Also, mind, body, spirit. I think it maps on in the same way. And we need all of those. We need to address all those aspects of ourselves to be, really fully functioning human beings. So when I'm practicing presence, I'm more likely to recognize the stories my mind is telling me. So our mindfulness practice can support our cognitive practice. When I'm doing an activity, and it could be something I enjoy, if I'm really present, focused on what I'm doing, accepting things as they are, then I'm going to get a lot more out of that experience. So our mindfulness can support our behavioral therapy. And in the same way, the things that we think and the things that we do are really intimately connected to our experience of mindful presence. So I have kind of integrated these into a practice I call Think, Act, Be, to summarize these three. And it's actually the provisional title of a new book that I'm finishing up, where I'm really kind of trying to flesh out this integration and the kind of the mutual benefit that mindfulness and CBT offer each other, and what a complete system it can give us. I should mention that there's really a growing body of scientific support for mindfulness, and that a lot of the trappings that we associate with it, like crystals and certain types of clothing and incense and all those things, are fine, but they're not a necessary part of mindfulness, which is the simplest thing. It's just, as you said, it's being present. It's being present and open to our lives just as they are, receiving our life just as we find it. And as simple and direct as that is, it also is the foundation for these deep, meaningful spiritual practices. And also, changes the brain, as we know from brain imaging studies, and affects our cortisol levels, and all kinds of these scientifically validated outcomes. So it's so simple, it's annoying. I know. How can it be so difficult if it's so simple? Right. It's hard work. So what do you, in your practice, what do you find yourself saying over and over again? As a society, a collective, what do we need to hear? What are people struggling with? What do you find yourself saying over and over? So 2 things. 1, come back to yourself. Come back to yourself over and over. Just come back. Okay, yeah, all right, I'm back. And then I'm out and I'm doing something else, and I'm worrying, and I'm thinking about something that's not happening now, and I'm disconnected from my body. All right, come back. Come right back. You're right here. So one of the practices that I started doing myself and then shared with others, just this I am here meditation. It's a 3-word meditation, but just I am here. I'm here, and there's an immediate grounding that we can experience. The other is that is to let things take the amount of time that they take. Going back to that scarcity mindset that we talked about earlier. That's hard. It's so hard. That one's hard. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the alternative is we end up, struggling against the limits of time, and making time the enemy, and feeling like we're constantly being pushed and punished by time limits. But when we accept that the time we have is the time that we have, and we let things take the time that they take, not that we have to go in slow motion, but we just realize like this is going to take some finite amount of time, and as long as I'm doing it, I'm going to be in the experience. What a relief. I've been reminding myself of that many, many times a day lately. You have time. Because I just, reflexively fall into that feeling of like, okay, I'm going to get this done, and I'm going to get this done, and then I have to move on to this. And it's like... Yeah, it's like forcing it through. The whole day. From the time we wake up until we go, till we go to bed. But if we can just pause, be like, you have time. It's all right, buddy. Take it easy. Like, you have time. And if we don't have time, then maybe it's not something that has to get done. You have the coolest voice, and it's so calming. That's nice. You're the head of therapy for the Bloom app, which is like an app that combines CBT and mindfulness. Tell us how people can, you have a whole host of resources available to people. Can you talk about some of the ways that people can maybe access some of those resources and help them in their lives? Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So my goal, really going back quite a ways now, has been to bring CBT practices into daily life in ways that make it really accessible for anyone. So that started with just trying to get more CBT into people's hands, like writing books about CBT, but more and more I've found that I want to find ways to get into our daily lives to make these practices really portable. So, I had in mind, I wanted to do a digital interpretation of CBT in some way. And so when I was approached by Bloom a couple years ago, almost 2 years ago to the day, actually, I was really excited. They're doing great things there. So people can check out on my website, SethGillihan.com. There should be a link to Bloom there. It's been a great collaboration. Because, these devices that we have with us all the time, obviously they can be such a distraction from our lives, but, we're trying to use them, encourage their use in a way that brings us more fully into our kind of walking, talking, breathing, three-dimensional life. And, in a related way, not on the digital side, but on the kind of print version side of things, I've created these CBT decks that have, it's cards, like usually about 100 cards per deck, and each card is a single practice, and maybe 75 words or so, and you can take that practice with you for the day, bring it into your life, so that the I am here meditation I mentioned is one of those. There are other ones that are more on the cognitive side, like practicing recognizing and questioning our thoughts. There are behavioral ones, like trying out, small, simple techniques that help us to move through our fears or to accomplish things that are really important to us. So I think that's really where I'm focusing a lot of my energy now, is just trying to make these practices, really trying to lower the barrier of entry for them. So it's not like this big thing you have to do, but it's just like, here's a card, one thing, try it out today, see what you like. And over time, we're kind of building up this library of techniques that we can use that can really support the things that we want to grow toward in our lives.
It's almost like a being present practice.
Absolutely.
Present practice.
Yes.
A gratitude practice.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
Gratitude
is one of the things. Yes. Yeah. Some of them are about gratitude. A lot of them are about presence. So yes. It's I guess broadly it's about being in our lives more fully.
So what are some ways, how can people find you, Dr. Seth?
Probably the best way is through my website, SethGillihan.com, and from there are links to some online guided meditations. I have a YouTube channel, links to my podcast, to my books. I think that's a kind of a central place to go.
So you're the Think, Act, Be guy, right?
I'm the Think, Act, Be guy. That's me, yeah.
Think, Act, Be guy.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Seth, thank you so much for being a guest. This was mind-blowing for me. It was just so great to kind of put to reframe some of the ideas that are holding us back and figuring out how do we just come back to us.
Well, that is a really nice summary of what CBT is, reframing and coming back to ourselves. So I really appreciate your questions beautiful. And your comments. Thank you for having me on.
Sometimes I feel like we can really solve the world's biggest problems together on the Culture Changers podcast. Is that an ambitious goal? I don't know, but it feels like I can do it. And it all starts with getting to the root of what is most important in your life. And based on your feedback, I'm hearing that these topics we're covering are issues that are really resonating with you and issues you've never known that you've been dealing with it. They never had a name. They just bubbled underneath the surface. And then they manifest itself in different ways. And this is happening in my life too. So hopefully we can make it better together. And I'm so excited to have Dr. Seth Gillihan's wisdom and perspective today. I've linked his info in the show notes, and I've linked my info in the show notes because I want you to tell me what's going on for you. I want you to reach out to me. What are you facing that's holding you back? What's pissing you off? What are you struggling with? Or what's working for you? And, maybe you have some feedback that you'd like to make this show better, have some critiques over that. I'm open to that too. So if you can connect with me on the socials or drop me your email at allisonandhair.com, where all the meaty good stuff happens. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.